I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer for RealTime Fantasy Sports, and welcome to the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. On today's show, I'm joined by Logan Glaser once again. Logan, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff.
Today, Logan and I are going to do a completely Thanksgiving-themed show. All right, Logan?
Yeah, excited. We got 3 good matchups on the slate, and looking forward to diving into those.
Yeah, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go over all 3 Thanksgiving Day games. We're going to give a fantasy start for each game, a fantasy sit for each game, and then a prop bet for each game as well, Logan. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
The main reason we're doing this is we're running all sorts of contests here at RealTime Fantasy Sports right now. We have a Turkey Bowl shootout. We have all sorts of DFS options, pick'em options as well. So the Turkey Bowl shootout, right now it's about 74% sold out. So that's going to sell out, guaranteed.
Yeah, it'll probably sell out by Tuesday evening. We're filming this Tuesday morning, so if you're watching this, make sure you hurry up and get in there. The limit is 5 entries per person, $10. Top 50 teams win at least $100. First place taking home $2,000.
So here's how that works as well. So this is why we're doing these picks. It can help you set your lineup. So it's 8 players you start in the Turkey Bowl shootout. 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers or tight ends, 1 defense/special teams, 1 kicker. But you can only take 2 players from each NFL team, so definitely some strategy involved.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy, and you also want to have that unique lineup to kind of separate you from someone else. You want to have some stars in your lineup, but you also want to have a couple surprises. If those players go off, then it can be in the money.
And we're going to help you get those players on your rosters. And also, we want to talk about these DFS options too. We have all sorts of different
we've got
ones,
tons of DFS options for Thanksgiving. We've got several GPPs in the daily lobby, a couple of 50-50s, and then also our pick'em options. So go ahead and go to the DFS lobby, take a look at those. Lots of options for Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, and pick'em too, you mentioned. So we're going to give everybody a pick'em pick for this week as well. So a lot of fun, a lot of great options. Should make Thanksgiving Day even better because there's all sorts of stuff you can watch and root for,
Absolutely.
Right? All right, let's get into these games then, Logan. Let's talk about the first one. Bills 7-3 at the Lions 4-6. Lions coming off a big win, a little bit of a surprise. Bills kind of stumbled a little bit lately, but still kind of holding on. But who's your start for this matchup?
Yeah, starting one goes Stephon Diggs. So it's a easy play with going with Diggs as my start right there. I want him in all of my Turkey Bowl lineups. Him and Josh Allen are going to put up absolute numbers against this Detroit defense who ranked 32nd. This is the highest over-under as well on the slate at 54 compared to the other 2 matchups in the low 40s. So you want a lot of players in this matchup, and I think it's going to be very high scoring. I'm going to go with the number 1 wide receiver.
That's a good play. So I'm going to give you a little bit of deeper dive here for my start. And it's Khalif Raymond with the Detroit Lions. So he played at least 82% of the snaps his last 6 games. He's getting a lot of playing time. He has 7 straight games with at least 3 catches. They're going to be playing from behind most likely. Like you said, could be a high-scoring game. Means they could throw often. I don't see them having a ton of success running the ball against this defense. Playing from behind, have to throw a lot. I think Raymond gets a lot of targets, and he's going to come at a pretty cheap price, whether you're playing DFS or in this Turkey Bowl shootout as well, and you're looking for a different option to differentiate yourself. All right, Logan, on the other end of things, how about a sit, somebody you're avoiding this match?
Yeah, my sit's going to be DeAndre Swift this week. A lot of owners have been going back and forth whether to start him or not. I mean, it's DeAndre Swift, but he's coming off that injury, and he's already played 3 or 4 weeks, and you think he'd be fully back to health, but they've really relied on Jamal Williams, who leads NFL in touchdowns, which he's taking up all the goal line carries and also some of the backfield work as well. So DeAndre Swift still had 12 fantasy points last week. He's an okay option, but I'm going to be sitting him this week. I like other options on this Thanksgiving Day slate.
I don't blame you with the way that usage is going. I mean, Justin Jackson now
they're about even in snaps.
He had more touches last week. I don't understand it. As a Swift owner, it frustrates me. All right, my sit is Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions. So I mentioned they might have to throw more often in this game playing from behind. I still don't like Goff, though. I just don't trust him. He has failed to hit double digits. He failed to even hit double-digit fantasy points last week. So he had a brutal game last week. He has not topped 18 fantasy points 3 straight games. He has fewer than 170 passing yards 2 of 3 games as well. When they score, it's on the ground, running the ball in the end zone. He's not getting many touchdowns in the red zone. I just don't trust him in this matchup. Even if he has to throw the ball more, I think he could turn it over and not do much for his fantasy owners. All right, let's talk about a pick'em play now for this game. These are always a lot of fun to do. Who's your pick for this week?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Josh Allen, more than 290.5 passing yards. Again, I said this is going to be a very high-scoring game. Both of these offenses have been great. Detroit's offense has been great, but what both of these teams are lack is defense so far. Detroit, all their games have been high-scoring so far, and this is going to be just like the others, and it's the highest over-under on the entire NFL slate for this week. Lots of points going to be scored, lots of passing yards for Josh Allen, so I'm going to go with the more than 290 for him.
So kind of like you, I'm sticking with the theme of Buffalo having a lot of success throwing the ball, and mine is Gabe Davis over 58.5 receiving yards. So he's not just been touchdown dependent lately. He has 17 targets his last 2 games, at least 7 targets 3 or 4 games, double-digit fantasy points 2 straight, 11 catches his last 2 games. Like you said, Detroit's not very good against the pass. They allow the 6th most fantasy points to receivers this year. So I think Gabe Davis hits over 58.5 receiving yards. All right, let's move on to the next game now, Logan. So it's the Giants, New York Giants 7-3 at the Dallas Cowboys 7-3. Kind of a surprise, both these teams coming in 7-3. One's coming in a little hotter than the other, though, after their performance.
For
Dallas
sure.
absolutely annihilated Minnesota last week,
sure.
right?
Yeah, this is actually a really big game for both of these teams for the division along with the playoffs. So it's going to be a tightly contested game. I think it's going to be more low scoring, but my start this week is going to be Tony Pollard, who's absolutely took off at the running back role. He's kind of taking over that lead role with Dallas. He led NFL in fantasy points last week with 36.9 points. He's had double-digit rush attempts in 5 of the last games. Zeke is back, and Zeke did get a lot of goal line work, and I think that's going to continue. I think Zeke's going to get goal line work, and Pollard's going to work in the middle of the field as well. But he's also getting receptions out of the backfield. He's had 6+ targets in his last 2 games, and that's with Zeke back in the lineup. So I like him as my start in the Turkey Bowl lineup.
I like Pollard a lot too. He's on my pick'em play later on. Tease that a little bit. But my start for this game is Darius Slayton, receiver with the New York Giants. So he played a season-high 87% of the snaps last week. Wan'Dale Robinson is now out for the year towards ACL, unfortunately. That means more playing time for Slayton. He had a season-high 10 targets in that game last week. Double-digit fantasy points 4 straight games as well. I don't see the Giants being able to keep up with this offense, so I think they could be playing from behind again. Another game script game, having to throw the ball more. Slayton's clearly the top option in this passing game right now. I think he keeps it rolling, has another good performance in Week 12. Okay, Logan, how about a sit now in this game, the Giants at Cowboys?
Yeah, sitting, I'm going to go with Dak Prescott. So Giants ranked 10th against the pass, and what I said before, I really think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I also think New England, Minnesota are going to be a low-scoring game, so I'm going to be stacking that first game heavily. But I really don't like Dak Prescott this week. I think Dallas have really relied on their run game so far, especially last week. Dak still has put up pretty good numbers. If scoring 40 points will do that, but I think this will be a different game, and it's going to be a lot more low scoring. So I'm going to be sitting Dak this week.
So my sit is the other QB in this matchup, and that's Daniel Jones. So he played against this Cowboys team in Week 3, scored just 16.7 fantasy points. He had 196 passing yards without a score in that game. He has 6 games this year with fewer than 20 fantasy points. While he's played well at times and he's played a little better lately, he's still been up and down. He's missing another option in the passing game as well with Wan'Dale Robinson now out for the year. I don't think that bodes well for his fantasy production. I know he runs the ball and it helps his floor a little bit, but I still don't see him doing much in this matchup against a really good Cowboys defense that completely shut down Minnesota last week, and that's a much better offense in my opinion. All right, Logan, how about a pick-em play for this week in this game?
For pick-em play, I'm going to go kind of off of my sit, and that's Dak Prescott less than 246.5 passing yards. So, again, I think this is going to be a kind of a game script play. I think Dallas is going to have the lead in a low-scoring game, and they're going to really rely on that run game to keep the clock moving. I think Dak has not had over 275 passing yards this year so far, so that number is still pretty high for him to hit the 246, but I think the game script is going to play a huge factor in him being under 246.5 passing yards. All
right, my pick'em is the guy you have as your start, and that's Tony Pollard. More than 12.3 fantasy points. So Ezekiel Elliott returned, like you said, but the snap count was really in favor of Pollard. Still 54% of the snaps for Pollard compared to 29% for Zeke. Pollard has 21 plus fantasy points 3 straight games, topped 100 total yards 4 straight games as well, so he's getting work in the passing game too. He had 100 yards showing against the same Giants team in week 3, so I really like his chances to top that 12.3 fantasy points in this matchup. All right, let's move on to the last game of the day. It is the New England Patriots at the Minnesota Vikings. Give me your start in this matchup.
Yeah, starting I'm going to go with TJ Hawkinson as my start in this matchup. He's had 27 targets in his last 3 games with Minnesota since being traded to them. He's kind of become a focal point in this offense. Him and Jefferson are going back and forth with who has had the most targets per game. Last week it was Hawkinson. Led the team in targets. I think he's a top 3 tight end overall in the NFL now in this offense. He's getting tons of looks, putting up some yards, just needs to find the end zone. But I really like Hawkinson this week as my start.
I like Hawkinson as well. My start for this matchup is New England Patriots receiver Jacoby Myers. So he's actually been down a little bit the last couple games. I'm looking for a rebound game in this matchup. He does have fewer than double-digit fantasy points 2 straight games, but that broke a streak of 6 consecutive games with double-digit fantasy points. So he's really been super consistent all year. And still, even with those down games last 2 weeks, he has 4 catches in each of those games. So at least he got the work, just didn't really produce the yards. I like his matchup much better this week against Minnesota. They allow the 5th most fantasy points to receivers, so I think Myers rebounds and has a good, consistent showing like he has all season. All right, Logan, let's talk about sitting this matchup. Who do you not like?
Yeah, sitting I'm going to go with Adam Thielen. So last week he only had 2 receptions, 25 yards. New England ranks 3rd best defense against wide receivers. The over-under in this game is 42.5. This is going to be another one of those very slow games, and I really like benching Adam Thielen, as I now think he's the 3rd option in this offense, going from 2nd to 3rd with the addition of TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, I agree with that. My sit in this matchup is another New England Patriot, and it's Damian Harris, the running back. So Ramondre Stevenson still is the clear #1 back in my opinion. I know Harris had a better game last week. It was encouraging to see him bust off a couple long runs. He still played just 24% of the snaps, so that's what concerns me. He doesn't catch the ball. He has no more than 2 catches in a game all year, just 13 catches all season. I really think that hurts his fantasy ceiling. So he might get some rush attempts in this game, but I don't think it's going to be enough work to make him very fantasy relevant. And like I mentioned earlier, Minnesota, they're good against the run, but not so good against the pass. I think New England might have to pass the ball more in this matchup, so I don't like Harris a lot. And I just don't like his floor right now with Stevenson getting a lot of that work as the #1 back. All right, let's talk about a pick'em now, Logan, in this Patriots and Vikings game. What's your pick'em play?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Adam Thielen, less than 47.5 yards. Kind of what I mentioned with this hit. I really don't like this game scripture for him, and I really think he's the 3rd option in this offense. Kind of going off of yours as well, it kind of surprises me if you want to go ahead and say what your pick'em prop is, because Adam Thielen is actually projected more yardage than the player that you're taking. So
yeah, you're right. So my pick and play is TJ Hawkinson. He has really played well since joining the Vikings, and it's over 44.5 receiving yards. He has at least 9 targets 3 straight games with the Vikings, getting tons of weekly looks with his new team. He has double-digit fantasy points 5 times this year as well, even when he was playing with Detroit. Patriots struggle against the tight end. They allow the 9th most fantasy points to tight ends. So I think Hawkinson hits the over 44.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, so Thielen is actually projected 3 more yards than Hawkinson, and New England does great against the wide receiver. As I mentioned, they're 3rd best against the wide receiver, and they struggle against the tight end. So I think this is a really good play to go over with Hawkinson and under with Thielen.
All right, Logan, that's our Thanksgiving Day preview. Again, all sorts of contests. We're running Turkey Bowl shootout, DFS stuff as well, and our pick'em plays too. So get in one of these contests, make it even more interesting.
Exactly, and all these teams are pushing for their playoffs. Playoffs start in a couple of weeks, depending on what type of league you're in. So we got playoff pushes and Thanksgiving Day. So
yeah, and no buys this week as well.
No buys.
There's going to be buys 13 and 14 though, which
yes,
kind of
love
stinks.
that. Yeah.
But this week, 14. No buys. We got a full roster to contend with, which is good news for fantasy.
Yes,
right?
for sure.
All right, good luck in all these Thanksgiving Day contests and all your Week 12 fantasy games as well. This has been Jeff Paur for RealTime Fantasy Sports.
And this has been Logan Glaser from RealTime Fantasy Sports.
Happy Thanksgiving.